Hi, I'm Michael Perez, and today I have a trick question for you. What is hypnosis? Okay, so let's play fair. That was a trick question. And the reason that's a trick question is that there isn't very much agreement on what hypnosis is or is not. In fact, if you spend a lot of time around hypnosis forums, you will find that they are, in a very real way, an ongoing argument about what hypnosis is. Now, let me break all of the arguments down for you in a way that certainly has been my experience. Now, some people will argue with what I'm about to say, but that's okay. That's part of the reason why I'm going to say what I'm saying. So the way that it goes is something like this. Most people involved in these arguments about what hypnosis is have this to say about it. Hypnosis is what I do. Anything I don't do is not hypnosis. Now, since different people do different things in the context, this is where there is a big argument. Because wherever there's overlap, fine. Whatever overlaps is hypnosis. But wherever there is not overlap, wherever somebody is doing something different, then this is not considered hypnosis. So let's talk about the way that we're going to be talking about hypnosis in the context of these conversations. Because one of the first things you need to do when you're having a discussion is to define terms for the sake of argument. Okay. Now, so I'm not suggesting that anyone has to agree with this as a fundamental be-all and end-all definition of hypnosis. But for the sake of discussion, I'm going to try to come up with a broad-ranging definition. In other words, a definition that includes what several different camps would agree to one extent or another is hypnosis. Now, hypnosis, first of all, is a type of communication. I don't think that anyone is suggesting that there's any kind of hypnosis that takes place if there's just no ability for one person to affect another person. So therefore, there has to be some kind of communication. And if it's a communication, obviously not every communication can qualify as hypnotic. And therefore, we have to take a moment and say, what is hypnotic influence? Well, I think we can say from the point of view of modern neuropsychology that hypnotic influence is something that affects decision-making, our behaviors, or our feelings that emanate from preconscious or unconscious decision-making and action. So therefore, it's a communication that has pre-conscious hypnotic influence over our thoughts, feelings, and actions. So for the sake of argument, that's what we're going to be defining as hypnosis in these discussions. Now, there are really big arguments about, what is hypnosis, what is relaxotherapy, what is just being dictatorial, and we'll eventually discuss them. But I think that the most important thing to think about right now is the idea that hypnosis is this kind of specialized communication that affects us at a preconscious level to change our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. I'll give you one quick illustration. For a little while, I had an office that was directly across from a dentist's office. And during those times, people would come to me, and I would work with them, and I would have a conversation with them. Now, this was a weird conversation. It wasn't like a normal conversation exactly, but essentially the conversation went something like this. I'm going to take you across the street in a few minutes. And you're going to sit down in the dentist's office. And when this happens, you're not going to feel any pain. So that as you sit down and you have your dentistry done, you won't need any anesthetic because you won't feel any pain. Do you agree to this? To which the person would, in their own way and in their own manner, would tell me, yes, Michael, I agree to that. That's fine. And then I would take them across the street and they would get their dentistry done. They'd give me a call just before they were ready to be picked up. I'd walk them back across the street. and then they'd sit with me for another few minutes until they were back into a more normal state of consciousness. And then I would send them on their way. So if I were to sit down with you and I were to say, well, okay, so-and-so, I'd like you to go and have a root canal done. And I don't want you to feel any pain. Even if you were a really cooperative person, and even if you said to me, you'd say, Michael, absolutely, I promise I will do this. Whereas some people have a high enough tolerance for pain, a high enough pain threshold to maybe keep that agreement. Most of us could not do that. Not from that kind of normal conversation. So therefore, hypnosis is a special conversation that affects us in a pre-conscious or unconscious way. And that changes things that we do not normally have the conscious ability to change. And so hypnosis allows us to do things that we cannot otherwise do based on our agreements to doing things in a certain conversation. Okay, so from a brain science point of view, there's a lot of stuff you can't do with your prefrontal cortex that you can do with the rest of your brain. And so hypnosis bypasses some of this stuff in order to allow you to do stuff with other older parts of your brain. I hope this is making some sense. I hope this is giving you some insight. Now, in the days and weeks to come, we'll be talking about practical application of this. But for right now, I just want to get us to get an understanding of what it is that hypnosis might be, at least for the sake of this conversation. Thank you for hanging out with me today. Thank you for sharing this discussion with me. Now, if you've got other sort of nonpartisan definitions for hypnosis that you would like to share, or if you've just got questions about this definition that I've put forward here, any kind of feedback is welcome. Please like the video if you like it. Please dislike the video if you don't like it. And please comment. Please share your thoughts, because my question for you is, what do you think about this definition? And do you have an alternative? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And in the meanwhile, subscribe if this is the kind of thing that you want to enjoy more of. And until then, be well.